Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we're here with my blind reaction to Gillman, Teenage Kraken. So this is another movie we're doing this week. Once again, just like with the last one, not a donation reward. Due to just doing the donation reward week this next week, or as if you're seeing this tomorrow. This entire next week is all going to be donation rewards, so I decided to make the movies from this week not so. But yeah, if that makes any sense. Uh, but yeah, this is a movie that I've heard some interesting things about because when this was being advertised, like it was really poorly advertised and no one who knew about it was into it. It looked bad and it just no one cared. Apparently after it came out though, a lot of people had seen it and were saying that the trailers really didn't do it justice. And it's actually one of two movies that had this happen to it recently, the other one being Elemental. Um, Both of these movies had people saying after they saw it that the trailers didn't really do it justice, that the trailers were poorly handled. I don't know for sure. I can't say with any level of certainty whatsoever if that's true. All I can say is, from my experience with the trailers, yeah, both this and Elemental looked pretty bad. Um, I had pretty much no interest in ever seeing this because of how bad it looked from the trailer until people started saying this. Until people started saying, like, oh, the trailer didn't do it justice, the movie's actually pretty good. Um, I do know there is a certain subset of fans who have been shipping, I guess, the main two characters. The one mermaid girl and then Ruby. So I guess there's that as well, but yeah, it's like I don't really know too much else about this. All I know is like mermaids versus krakens. The mermaids are supposedly the bad guys, and I know what some of the characters look like. That's literally it. I don't know how the story goes down. I don't know any of that stuff, but I'm willing to give it a shot. If people say this is actually pretty good and the trailers were just, poorly handled, I'm willing to give it a shot. We'll see how it goes, and hopefully it will be a movie that I turn my opinion around on. Unlike Elemental, this one at least seemed like it had some potential to it too. Like Elemental just looked like absolute dog shit. Like even with the trailer making this one look bad too, it wasn't as bad by any means. Um, it definitely had a lot more potential, a lot more to it that could be good. Um, so I have a lot more faith in people saying that the trailer was just bad for this one than I do with Elemental. With Elemental, I have pretty much no faith in that movie. So, I mean, I could be wrong on that too, though. Who knows? But I have no interest in checking it out, honestly. Because I don't believe it's going to be good, personally. But I'll give this one a shot, see if it surprises me, and hopefully it does. Um, so, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the movie. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, there were a couple moments in this that did make me laugh, and obviously this movie looked gorgeous. Like, with the colors, the bioluminescence and everything. Like, going into this, anyone could tell this movie was going to be phenomenally animated and just beautiful to just generally look at. Um, That's about all I can say about this movie that I would really call that great, though. Um, and here's the thing: I would not say this movie is bad, but it is so mediocre. It is so by the numbers, so bland, so lacking anything unique or interesting about it that it's just a lot of the time I was bored. I could see everything that was going to happen. It was clear that Chelsea was going to be the bad guy, that she was going to, that the entire reason that she wanted the entire thing with the trident and all, it was very clear that that was a bad thing. Like, everything could be seen coming a mile away. And I've said before that inherently predictability is not a bad thing. And I stand by that. But I also have said that it depends on how it's executed. And the problem is, it is so poorly executed here. Again, not necessarily to a degree to where it makes the movie outright bad, but to a degree where it stops the movie from being good at the same time. The movie just comes across as super bland to the point where nothing about it is interesting outside of the visuals looking good and a couple of jokes that work. Like, it's so, like, boring. It's just, I've seen this all before so many times. The entire thing with, like, the generational kind of situation going on with Ruby, her mother, and her grandmother. It's like, this has been done so many times just recently that it's kind of becoming a little boring. Like, the generational trauma thing is becoming this new trope that is just taking over a lot of these animated movies. And I think, like, the one that really kicked that off was Encanto. Encanto really made that a bigger thing. And other movies and stuff have done this as well, of course, in the past, even before that. But it's like that was the one that, like, really made it a current trend. And unfortunately, it's like other movies just haven't really been able to execute it as well. Because Encanto, it was surrounded by excellent writing, dialogue, uniqueness. Like, Encanto, honestly, didn't feel like anything I had seen before. It was so fresh and unique for me. And then you had Turning Red. Turning Red did this concept too. It did generational trauma with May, her mother, and grandmother. It was kind of the same thing. And again, it did it so much better. It was accompanied by great writing, good character work, and just all of that stuff. But then you have this, and it's just like the writing is subpar. It does nothing to make itself stand out outside of the visuals. The dialogue is like not that great. Like, there's a lot of characters who barely talk like people. And I'm talking about actual people, not like the Kraken characters or whatnot. I'm talking about like Ruby's friends. The way they talk feels like caricatures. Like, you're just making these tropes of characters that don't talk or act like real people at all. And it just feels off. The best one was Liza Koshy's character. Like, she was definitely the best in terms of the dialogue and writing and all, but even she wasn't that great. And the other two were like just tropes. They weren't even really characters. They were just tropes. And it's like, I've seen these kind of tropes done better and made to feel more like actual characters. The romantic interest character, I don't remember his name because he's not memorable at all, is super bland. He's just a super bland, nice guy who is very clearly into Ruby, and that's literally his entire character. Summed up in one sentence, because there's nothing more to him. There's no more depth or anything to him. It's disappointing. The parents are very generic. The mother figure has to be someone who's getting on our main character's nerves. She has to be like, not understanding and doing the right thing in the wrong ways kind of shit. You have the grandmother who seems like she's doing in a better, doing things better, but also has issues. And the father figure is just kind of a big dope. You have the goofy uncle stereotype, the hyperactive little brother. It's like they're all stereotypes. None of them feel like an actual character with depth and intrigue. Like, Ruby clearly has the most depth, which makes sense because she's the main character. But also, she's not really any different from any other main character you've seen go through this stuff. It's so by the numbers, too. It's like, it just doesn't take any risks, any chances. I think it would have been better if this was Nerissa's daughter instead of being Nerissa. And that she wanted revenge for her mother, but then found out in the end that wasn't the best way to handle things, and actually did end up getting redeemed. Yes, that would have been following in tropes as well, but it would have been leagues better than what we got. It would have been more interesting and given her more depth. Just making her be Nerissa is just like, who cares anymore? It's just like, you just don't care anymore. You have the most stereotypical salty sea captain character. His name is even fucking Gordon. It's just like, they could have tried so much harder with this, I feel. And by that I mean they could have actually tried. Nothing about it is actively, like, insulting or terrible. Like, I've seen movies, animated and otherwise, that are just bad. That just are just completely unenjoyable. And this isn't one of those. Like, I wouldn't be, like, angry watching this. I wasn't, like, upset at having seen this or anything. And I wouldn't be upset at watching it again. But it's not going to get me, it's not going to be exciting for me to watch it again. I'm not going to be hyped for it. Compare that to something like the first Spider-Verse movie. I haven't seen the new one yet, but the first Spider-Verse movie, I've seen that, like, probably 36 times. No joke. I've seen that many times, and it's still just as exciting to watch. Just as fun to watch. I get hyped every time I see someone post a new reaction to it. Which, admittedly, does not happen much anymore, but still, it does occasionally happen. And there's so many other ones. Turning Red and Encanto are also great examples of movies I get excited to watch again and again. But this, it's like, again, I won't be upset if I were to watch it again, but I'm not going to be excited to do so either. And on top of that, I know that the mother, like, apologized and everything for being too restrictive and lying and everything. But the events of the movie kind of back her up, and that annoys me a bit. Because it's very clear from the beginning that the mother is in the wrong with these kind of thoughts and with being overprotective and overguarded of her daughter. It's like anytime you see that in any movie or game or anything like that, they're in the wrong. That is a terrible way of parenting. It's not good. So it's like already there's kind of like that resentment in a similar way to the resentment towards May's mother in Turning Red. But the movie kind of justifies her actions and words and all. Because it's like, when all this happened, what happened? Nerissa tricked Ruby and got the trident, and yeah, they were able to destroy it in the end. But all of this still happened because Ruby didn't listen to her mom. That's undeniable. Ruby's mom was technically speaking correct, and all the bad stuff that happened in this was because of her. Was because Ruby didn't listen to her, rather. Because Ruby would not have most likely been as easily manipulated by Nerissa if she hadn't already experienced the water. Hell, Nerissa might not have even known about her in order to manipulate her. Probably wouldn't have if Ruby hadn't gone in the water before. So it justifies the mother, who is very clearly in the wrong with her beliefs and ideals and everything. So it's basically justifying poor ideals and just bad parenting. Even though, again, the mother, she does apologize to Ruby, and it's made clear that they're going to live open and free now and without all those restrictions. That's great, but the movie still justifies it with the story. Even if the characters themselves don't. Even if the characters turn against it and work to, be better. The story itself still justifies it. And it just feels wrong to me. That's not, like, it's an issue I have. It's not the biggest issue necessarily. I would say the biggest issue is still that it's just so fucking boring because it's so generic. It's like it just does not do anything new. It doesn't take any risks, any chances to, be its own thing. The only thing that sets this apart from any other movies that have done this same kind of thing is that it's about Krakens specifically. Same story, different coat of paint, basically. And that's boring. I understand that most everything nowadays is going to be, to some degree, recycled. Because with as much media as has been released over the years, it's really hard to do something completely original. And also there's the fact that studios don't want originality as much nowadays. Unless you're like A24, which is all about originality, most studios want something that they know is going to sell. They want something that they know that people will go see. And so they're going to more often than not take the safe bet, which is something from a pre-existing IP or something that is just proven to work. Something that they know people will like based on, the fact that they've liked that same kind of stuff before. Taking risks doesn't make them money often. And when it does, it's more of a surprise than a rule. So, yeah, it really sucks. Because in today's day and age, we're just not getting as much original stuff. And that's not to say we're not getting any. Because some writers and directors and all have worked out how to take these classic ideas that the studios want and make them more original by, writing it well enough to where it feels new and fresh, even if it technically isn't. And those are the kind of stories I really like. Stuff like Encanto, stuff like Turning Red, or Spider-Verse, or so on and so forth. And instead, we just get something that just goes with the flow that already exists. It doesn't try to do anything new with it or make it feel fresh. It's just, it is what it is. And that's really disappointing. Though I will say, I can't say for sure because I haven't seen it, but if the trailer is still anything to go by, oh, Elemental is definitely still worse. I would say that, because based on the trailer, Elemental actually looked bad. Like, actively bad. And again, I can't actually say if it is or not. I have not seen it. But it's like, that one actually looked like it would be something that I would consider bad, rather than just mediocre. But yeah, this movie just, it didn't do it for me, and it's really disappointing because DreamWorks is usually a pretty good company, and they've had so many like amazing movies throughout the years that whenever they do come out with a dud, it's really disappointing. They've even had some movies that have genuinely surprised the hell out of me. One of the recent ones that we reacted to was The Bad Guys. You might remember that my kind of consensus on that film was, this is not a good movie, but I still like it for some reason. And I've seen the movie multiple times since I first reacted to that, and I still kind of stand by that exact consensus. Like, it's not really a good movie, but for some reason, the voice acting, the dialogue, and the writing around it, even though a lot about it is poor, somehow makes it entertaining enough to enjoy. And it's just honestly really disappointing that this movie couldn't at least be the same thing. And this movie, like I said in the pre-thoughts, a lot of people have been saying that the trailer didn't do it justice. A lot of people have been saying that it's actually a lot better than the trailer. And I will say it's better than the trailer made me think it would be, but not by a lot. It's really not that much better. And DreamWorks, like I said, has done so much better with movies, even just recently. I mean, look at even just besides The Bad Guys, look at their most recent movie prior to this one, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. That movie's phenomenal. Like, and it has no absolute reason to be as good as it is. But everyone agrees that Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is phenomenal. It's such an amazing movie. There's so much effort and work and thought put into it that it just ends up being phenomenal. And then you go to this, it's like, this is your follow-up to that. That's disappointing. But to be fair, this is also the studio that gave us Boss Baby. One of the worst things to come out of animation in a long time. And it also gave us other stuff like, you know, the Captain Underpants movie, which wasn't good. And then, of course, it has some other amazing ones, like the first two How to Train Your Dragons, or all three of the Kung Fu Pandas, which apparently there's going to be a fourth one of those, and I'm just like, why? It was a trilogy, and it felt like a trilogy. There doesn't need to be another. That's just... They're going to run Kung Fu Panda into the ground just like they've run so many other things into the ground. But they had Megamind and stuff, and it's like, there's so many great movies that DreamWorks did, but there's also so many flops. And it's just kind of random as to where it's going to go with that. I mean, we're probably not going to get anything in line with like The Prince of Egypt or Road to El Dorado anymore. In not just in terms of being, traditionally animated, but in terms of like that level of quality. But if we can still get stuff on the level of like the Kung Fu Panda movies or the first two How to Train Your Dragons, or obviously Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, it's like, yeah, it's a different kind of quality because Puss in Boots: Last Wish, like for example, is phenomenal, but that's, let's be honest, an outlier. That's not common for a lot of DreamWorks movies nowadays to be that. Even like Kung Fu Panda movies aren't that good. Even the first two How to Train Your Dragons aren't that good. Puss in Boots was a big outlier. um, but apparently there's two more movies coming out from them. Another Trolls movie, which I haven't seen any of those, but everything I've heard has just made them look terrible. And then there's one called Orion and the Dark, which is coming to Netflix next year, which is apparently based on a children's book. I don't really know anything about that. I'm just seeing it listed here. But those are the only things currently listed for DreamWorks Animation as coming up. Um, so yeah, there's, I guess, those to look forward to. But yeah, this was not. This was one of their weaker. Well, again, not one of their weaker movies. Like you can't lump this in with like Boss Baby or anything. But I would say this is one of their more mediocre, more middling movies. Like this is definitely more meh than anything. It's not amongst their best by any means. It wouldn't even get close. In my opinion, and I want to make this clear, just like with everything I ever react to and all the thoughts I give are always just my subjective opinion. It's all based on my viewing experience. So always form your own opinions. If you love this movie, if you think it's one of DreamWorks' best, that's awesome. I fully support you having that opinion, and I believe that opinion is just as valid as mine. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone try to take your opinion from you or try to devalue your opinion. Your opinion is just as valid as anyone else's because it's your experience. So, I would love to hear what you thought of Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken down in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts, whether you enjoyed it or not. I would not be surprised if you enjoyed it more than me, and I would love to hear about that. So let me know, and thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.